Starting with the first season of Kyle, we had a pattern of ending the season with a cliffhanger that would kick us off into a new mystery.
We were looking for some big bang to carry us into what we thought was going to be the next and possibly last season of Kyle XY.
So season 3 built up to this big climax between Kyle and this character, Michael Cassidy. We were really intent in creating a character in Cassidy that didn't feel like a mustache-twirling villain.
Wait a long time to meet you, Kyle. Glad you're here.
Cassidy is the perfect representation of what we wanted. He's kind of a badass. He's sexy. He's incredibly charismatic. He's incredibly charming.
He is sent in by Latnok to try and persuade Kyle to join them.
Let us show you we're the good guys. I'm not interested.
I'm hoping you'll change your mind.
Kyle wants nothing to do with this guy. Cassidy is persistent and spends the bulk of the season trying to convince Kyle that all they want is for him to come into the fold, fulfill his potential, and show the world what you can do. It always kept Kyle off balance and the audience off balance. Is this someone that we can trust or not?
I think that this cliffhanger at the end of season 3 is one of our favorites because it's so intensely personal.
After having had villains who were easily disposed of, we wanted a more durable, a more complex villain.
Grace Kingsley, my mother.
What about her?
She's your mother too. I'm your brother.
We fully intended to continue to explore this new discovery in the show. Unfortunately, we didn't have that opportunity.
I know a lot of fans are wondering where the show would go after that moment, and we had big plans. We intended to be coming back for another season, but we didn't. And so when all is said and done, we have a lot of story to tell still.
When you have a show that's built about a boy who presumably has no family and only has the family that adopts him, when you learn that he actually does have biological family, it's extremely powerful material. And the intent was to give us a lot to play with.
100% Cassidy was telling the truth. 100% Cassidy and Kyle come from the same mother. I think that that's what was going to drive a lot of our story in the next season. Cassidy oddly spending his whole life having this jealousy, coming around to realize that Kyle is as extraordinary as everybody thought him to be.
I think Cassidy would have remained an antagonist, but I think it's in Kyle's nature to try to understand how could Cassidy, who's his own brother, be so evil? How could he threaten to harm the people that Kyle loves the most?
I'll hurt everybody that ever mattered to you.
One of the things that we wanted to explore in the next season was really having Kyle struggle with the question of, is it okay if you don't like your family very much? Does blood bond you forever? Or is a family like the Traegers that takes you in and loves you unconditionally? Is that what family's really all about?
All he's ever wanted was to be a part of your family. To Kyle, this is home. Why does that name sound familiar? Grace Kingsley was in Adam's notebooks. She's a member of Latnok.
It's funny that we never had Kyle question who his mother is.
Grace Kingsley was, in fact, the egg donor for Kyle. So she is, in fact, Kyle's biological mother.
Grace Kingsley was going to be a big struggle for Kyle as he tried to see the good in her.
The woman who was going to manipulate him and exploit him for the worst reasons is his own mother.
The mother to one of the most spiritually beautiful people on this earth was going to be all bad news.
We probably would have kept her in the shadows a bit and led up to a big reveal.
Like every adoptive mother's worst nightmare. Showing up on the doorstep, knocking on the door, saying, I'm back for my son. Thank you for taking care of him, but he's mine and I want him back. And of course, the Traeger family will never be torn apart. So at the end of the series, Kyle would have been right there at the center of it.
What are you doing here?
What are you?
Amanda, we need...
Season 3 was very much about the love triangle between Kyle, Jessi, and Amanda.
I wanted that love triangle to really drive a lot of story for Kyle over the next couple seasons.
Amanda's always represented the ideal girl next door, his first pure love, love at first sight.
It's different with Jessi because she also has similar powers and similar strengths.
See what's happening to the water? I can do that to you.
And maybe she's the only one who could be his girlfriend.
She's very complicated. You're not quite sure how to feel about her, and Kyle's never quite sure how to feel about her.
So act normal.
I can make him tell us what he's hiding.
That's not acting normal.
It is for me.
She's unhappy. She's in pain. She doesn't always do good. Even when she tries to do good, she can bring pain to people.
What's wonderful about Jessi in season 3 is you see without a doubt that she loves Kyle. She wants Kyle. She wants to be with him. He recognizes that she has this extraordinary potential. By the end, he's come around to loving her as well. So he has a choice between two extraordinary women.
Amanda.
Watching Kyle deal with the complications of having feelings for both girls who are so different and who truly genuinely don't like each other.
I'm gonna tell Kyle that I want him back.
You really have the nerve to say that?
Like I said, fair warning.
But I think the triangle was dissolving. I think Amanda was puppy love and Jessi's real love.
Had the show continued, Jessi and Kyle would have had a complicated relationship.
Jessi?
Does she have it in her to be good? Does Kyle have the ability to bring the good out of her forever?
But I don't think it's ever going to be a natural fit for her. I think that Jessi would continue to struggle with some of the darker aspects of her nature. And she's the yin to his yang.
I think we would have seen Kyle and Jessi make a really good go of it.
We make a good team.
Thanks for helping.
I can't say that it would have ended well, although it would have been a lot of fun watching and really emotionally powerful.
Why didn't you tell me about Amanda?
Because I don't want you to be with her. I want you to be with me.
I think Kyle one day in his life would have returned to Amanda to see, now that they both had their own identities and their own life experiences and were grown-ups and not just innocent little kids with a puppy crush on each other.
But I think the classic hero walks alone.
Kyle and Amanda, Kyle and Jessi, when all is said and done, it's probably just going to be Kyle. And I think it's one of the sort of bittersweet tragedies of being a superhero of the soul, is that you gotta fly solo, and that's gonna be okay.
Latnok as an ideal is a good thing.
They wanted to improve humanity. That is a noble goal.
The problem always is when you have that kind of technology available, that kind of science, whose hands is that in?
The disappointing thing about Latnok is that when it all came down to it, it was about money. They had this god, so to speak, that they think they created, and they wanted to kind of sell him to the highest bidder. They sold out.
Latnok isn't planning to gestate babies in those pods. They're making clones. Of me.
The idea that Latnok traced its ancestry back to Albert Einstein, and back to Kyle's father, and back to Kyle's mother. And this is, in fact, Latnok is Kyle's family business.
So I think a great deal of season 4 would have been Kyle figuring out ways to liberate himself and expose Latnok.
Latnok is an organization that's there for Kyle to remake it if he chooses. And the question is, what is Kyle going to make out of his relationship with Latnok? And is he going to go in and take control of Latnok and bring it back to its original course?
You have to understand, you're that guy. You always have been.
We've always seen the show as the evolution of a superhero. And Kyle, when I say superhero, we talked about him being a superhero of the soul, someone who touches people's lives,
who enable people to discover peace within themselves.
If the show had come to its natural end, our plan for Kyle was to see him go out into the world alone.
I won't be able to touch the world like Adam said if I'm not part of it.
You don't know what you're asking.
How does Kyle deal with his coming of age, coming of power?
He recognizes that he does possess these talents, these incredible gifts, and that it's beholden upon him to share those gifts.
I think Kyle would have made a pretty good go out of trying to do his good deeds, so to speak, under the radar.
Then you know what? Go ahead. Tell him everything. Tell him all.
One of the things we always talked about doing was having Kyle discovered by a greater public.
The minute you get into celebrity culture or people worshiping you, I think that's when people start to lose their way. And the minute that the story got out, that there's a real-life superhero wandering the earth, doing good deeds and helping people out, I think Kyle would have had a big struggle with trying to balance the scrutiny against his desire to just be a good person.
I think people would have been stunned and amazed, and he would have been a very inspiring leader.
What if Kyle did come out and become a great, for lack of a better word, spiritual leader? And his teachings were passed on for centuries after this.
It's not complicated, it's simple. I'll do everything in my power to live by the truth.
He was going to be able to do a lot of things to really change the world. Like Gandhi, you'd never know how that could have ended up, but definitely everybody would have known about him by the time he was gone from this earth.